I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, first reading.
Mr. Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill.
The legislative statement is published under the authority of the House. The Honourable David Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Justice Committee to consider the bill. Mr. Speaker, in 1975, this House passed the Treaty of Waitangi Act. That Act's preamble says that it was, quote, established to make recommendations on claims relating to the practical application of the principles of the treaty and, for that purpose, to determine its meaning and effect and whether certain matters are inconsistent with those principles, end quote. There was one big problem. Nowhere in the Treaty of Waitangi Act, and at no time since, has this Parliament said what those principles actually are. The democratically elected body of this Parliament has been silent. Nature abhors a vacuum, so Parliament's silence has been filled by various court-finding, tribunal reports and the government departments having a go at defining the principles. They've variously arrived at the Crown having a duty to partner with Māori, to protect Māori's self-determination, to consult and redress past wrongs. What all of these principles have in common is that they afford Māori different rights from other New Zealanders. And I know why that is. Lawyers, with their training, they can't help but see a contract, and their instinct tells them to interpret a contract instead of ask what is the best constitutional foundation for a country. Seeing the treaty as a, quote, partnership between races, as the Court of Appeal once said, does not work as a constitutional foundation for a country. The lawyers will defend their logic to the hilt, but there is one question they cannot answer. Where in the world is it a good idea to give citizens different rights based on ancestry? Where in the world has that approach been a success? Dividing people into tangata whenua, land people, and tangata tiriti. We can all think of examples where dividing people up by their race or religion has failed badly. It is the time for the body that posed that question in 1975 to say what those principles are. And the purpose of this bill is to break this Parliament's 49 years silence, to define the principles in law so it's crystal clear what the treaty means to modern New Zealanders. Section 6 is the core of the bill. It says the Treaty of Waitangi principles are as follows. Principle 1, the Executive Government of New Zealand has the full power to govern, and the Parliament of New Zealand has the full power to make laws in the best interest of everyone and in accordance with the rule of law and the maintenance of a free and democratic society. Principle 2, the Crown recognises and will respect and protect the rights that hapu and iwi Māori had under the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, at the time they signed it. However, if those rights differ from the rights of everyone, subclause 1 applies only if those rights are agreed in the settlement of a historical treaty claim under the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975.
Just a little bit of order. Thank you very much.
Principle 3 says that everyone is equal before the law. Everyone is entitled without discrimination. The equal protection and the equal benefit of the law and the equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights. These principles are based on the 3 articles of Te Tiriti, the Māori text, or at least Professor Kāwharu's 1987 translation of it. I'd like to thank the officials at the Ministry of Justice, who I suspect don't all agree with this particular kaupapa, but have been scrupulous in their professionalism and shown what the public service in New Zealand can be. The bill has other important sections. Section 7 says the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, and Section 6 must be used to interpret enactments. In other words, where there's a legal reference to the principles, this interpretation must be used. Section 8 says that the bill is not to apply to interpretation of the Treaty Settlement Act. In other words, treaty settlements are safe. Some people have said that the bill threatens treaty settlements. It does not, and there's no reason for anyone who's read the bill to say so anymore. Section 9 says nothing in this Act amends the text of the Treaty of Waitangi or Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Once again, many people have falsely claimed this bill rewrites the treaty. There's even those who campaign for toi tu te tiriti, or leave the treaty undisturbed. In black and white, this bill does not change the text of the treaty itself. What it does do is confirm the government has the right to govern New Zealand and this Parliament has the right to make laws in the best interests of everyone. It commits to protecting the rights of everyone. In short, I believe in freedom under the law, and I believe that you have those rights because of being a human being, not because you have any particular ancestry. I believe that all New Zealanders deserve tino rangatiratanga, the right to flourish as you would like to live, because all human beings are alike in dignity. And thus the bill does not extinguish any right, it does not take from anyone, it reinforces the rights of the treaty as universal human rights. There are those who say that the treaty is necessary because there's still inequity between Māori and non-Māori, on average. And that is true if you view the world as groups of people and based on ancestry and you average them. But the truth is, each person is more than an average. We are thinking and valuing beings with challenges and choices and hopes and dreams. Many Māori do very well and need little help. Many non-Māori are struggling and in need of greater help. If you want to help people in need, skip the division and just help people in need, is what I say. There are those who may agree with the sentiment of the bill, but believe that there are other priorities. The simple answer is that this government has not been stopped by this bill. In fact, this minister has not been stopped by this bill from making massive progress in health and housing and economic growth and education. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. But more importantly, a system of equal rights is essential for solving the practical problems we face. A separate health administration, seats reserved at the table of public entities, the requirement to consult people on resource management decisions based on ancestry, all of it just makes the task of solving the very real problems we solve all the harder than if we join hands in common humanity against the challenges we seek to overcome. The division that you are seeing was not caused by this bill. It's been built up over decades during which New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders. And what's worse, successive governments have encouraged that division. The division is there whether this bill is here to reveal it or not, and we cannot afford to ignore it any longer. In summary, Mr. Speaker, the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill fills a silence this Parliament has left for 5 decades. In so doing, it affirms the basis of our country. It is not division. Treaties are supposed to unite people, not divide them. We are fortunate that our country was founded by a voluntary agreement giving ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, or equal rights to all. And for affirming and celebrating that wonderful inheritance, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.